Hey everybody, it's Governor Gavin Newsom, and I'm just very grateful to lend my voice and, more importantly, my gratitude to each and every one of you for working so hard to abolish the death penalty here, not only in our state, but all across the nation. I'm very proud to reflect on the work that we did together to end this practice, or at least begin the process of ending this practice once and for all. It was just a few years ago in 2019 that one of my first actions as governor was to put a moratorium on the death penalty in California and to close the state's death chamber at San Quentin. I took this action because, like you, I believe the death penalty is simply unjust, it's unfair, and it's unequally applied based on race, wealth, and mental disability. The practice is also burdensome. It's cost the taxpayer some $5 billion just since 1978. Money could have been better used towards making our courts run more fairly, more efficiently, solving unsolved rapes and murders, investing in strategies to decrease crime, support victims and survivors, and reduce recidivism. There was an analysis that I know you're very familiar with of the U.S. murder rate and data going back from 1987 to 2015 that also found there was no evidence, none, that the death penalty deters murder or protects police. At the time we issued that moratorium in California, you may recall the National Academy of Sciences estimated that 1 in every 25 people on death row was wrongly convicted. We all know this. Putting an innocent person to death is a mistake we simply cannot undo. Death penalty doesn't make us safer. It risks innocent lives. And yeah, it's irreversible. Look, we all recognize that the crimes that land people on death row, the crimes that people inflict, leave deep and immeasurable pain on the victims and their loved ones. I heard this pain directly when I met with the victims' family members before ordering that moratorium. One of the family members I met looked me in the eye and actually thanked me, explaining that the state had no business, none, killing anyone in her sister's name, that it would actually dishonor her memory. I'll never forget that. Look, I continue to stand with each and every one of you, committed to building a justice system where everyone is equal in the eyes of the law, where we do everything in our power to promote safety of all communities. And I just want to extend my, again, gratitude and applaud the Death Penalty Focus for over 3 decades of work in educating and organizing and mobilizing the anti-death penalty movement here in California and inspiring others all across the state, and for that matter, around the rest of the world. Thank you. Thank you for shining a light on this great injustice and working toward a more equal and moral society.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. The events of this past year are staggering, in many ways life-changing. They include the long overdue national recognition of the systemic racism in our criminal justice system. This alone makes the work of Death Penalty Focus even more central to our nation's journey toward true equality and justice for all. Despite the challenges we've all faced, Death Penalty Focus has persevered. The reach and breadth of our educational programs, our webinar series, our advocacy, and legislative activism have kept DPF at the forefront of the nationwide movement to abolish the death penalty. We're hopeful because change is coming. President Biden has promised to put an end to the federal death penalty, and Congress has already drawn up legislation to make good on that promise. And a recent Gallup poll showed that more Americans oppose the death penalty now than at any time in the last 50 years. And Los Angeles County has recently sworn in George Gascon, an avowed opponent of the death penalty, as its new district attorney. This is historic. So as you can see, there are reasons to be hopeful. The gains that we've made in recent years are due in large part to the dedicated heroes of the abolition movement that we honor here tonight. We're on the right side of history, folks. We can and we will end the barbarity of state killing with your help forever.
I'm honored to share this virtual stage with some of our most prominent leaders in the fight to end the death penalty in America. I appreciate the work that Death Penalty Focus has done for over a quarter century, and with a new presidential administration, yay, I feel hopeful that more victories may be in sight. And while eliminating the death penalty will not fix our broken criminal justice system, it would be a significant step in the right direction. When the United States finally joins the many nations around the world, and even the 22 U.S. states that have already abolished this cruel and unjust practice, the moral and spiritual leadership of people like Rabbi Sharon Brous will have played a crucial role. 16 years ago, Rabbi Brous co-founded the ICAR congregation with the goal of reinvigorating Jewish practice and inspiring people of faith to reclaim a moral and prophetic voice in the public square. ICAR's founders saw that many others shared their strong desire to incorporate spiritual values and multi-faith political organizing into their personal and professional lives. ICAR is located in my district, is now one of the fastest growing and most influential Jewish congregations in the country, and the shift to online operations has only increased ICAR's reach. Millions more have heard Sharon Brous through her TED Talk, Reclaim Religion, and other public appearances, including her speech at the 2017 Women's March in Washington and at the opening of the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. Rabbi Brous blessed President Barack Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden at their 2013 inaugural National Prayer Service at the White House. In 2018, she was named the #1 of the week, Newsweek, the Daily Beast list of the most influential rabbis in America. I'm grateful to say that Rabbi Brous has become a good friend and a valued advisor. She knows that reckoning with centuries of racial injustice in our criminal justice system requires an end to the death penalty, and she understands that state killing only sickens society with more violence and the hollow promise of revenge. So it is now my honor to present the 2021 Death Penalty Focus Award to Rabbi Sharon Brous.
Thank you. I am so deeply humbled and honored to be with all of you this evening. Thank you, Representative Bass. You know, I'm continually astonished by the grace and moral clarity that guide you in your leadership, and thank you for introducing me tonight. Thank you to my dear friends Ed and Sarah, and thank you Steve, and Mike and Bethany and Sarah and Nancy and Yoko. Thank you all. I want to tell you tonight that as a rabbi and as a person of faith, in a time of violent religious extremism, I am in anguish. I'm in anguish when I witness the heretical and increasingly common manipulation of religion, so often used today as an excuse to promote a violent, misogynistic, white supremacist agenda in this country. Over just the past couple of years, the Bible has been used to justify tear-gassing peaceful protesters, denying refuge to asylum seekers, stripping rights from women and LGBTQ people, separating children from their parents at the border, justifying the proliferation of guns, and yes, ramping up federal executions. I am outraged when I see religion being weaponized for personal profit and political expediency. So I want to talk tonight about a different kind of religious sensibility, a different way of being a person of faith in the world. The Hebrew Bible is clear in the book of Leviticus, chapter 24. If one person kills another, surely that person shall die. And yet my rabbinic forebears, despite their fidelity to the biblical text, scaffold one obstacle after the next to essentially preclude the use of the death penalty under any circumstance. The Mishnah, our ancient code of law, famously asserts that a court that executed even one person in 70 years would be considered a court with blood on its hands. And several of our greatest sages claim that had they been members of the High Court themselves, they would have abolished the death penalty altogether. They took this position because even though the biblical text granted them permission to uphold capital punishment, their moral compass could not abide it. They couldn't bear to live in a society in which we, flawed human beings with flawed legal and social structures, might inadvertently take the life of an innocent person, God forbid. And all of these are good, practical reasons to permanently abolish the death penalty, articulated 2,000 years ago. But they were concerned about more than flawed systems and potential errors in judgment. Before every capital case, the judges would exhort the witnesses, reminding them that every human being is created b'tselem Elohim in God's own image. And that last assertion That is core to my faith. That's what fuels my rabbinate and fills my life with meaning, and that's what brings me to this cause. I believe that every human being has a unique story to tell in the world, and therefore that the death of a person, whether guilty or innocent, is the death of an entire world. I believe that every person is bestowed with infinite value and inestimable worth. And I know that even those who've caused great harm can change. Their hearts can be awakened through a process of truth-telling and reconciliation, and they can walk toward healing. I also believe, as our teacher and my friend, our speaker tonight, Brian Stevenson, says, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. There's an image that I've been holding at the forefront of my consciousness since the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd last summer. In my tradition, we say that a procession of angels surrounds every person wherever he goes, blowing trumpets and proclaiming, "Make way for the image of the Holy One." I ask you for a moment just to imagine that. I think about this not only as an abstract theological claim, but as a real human challenge. What would it mean to build a society in which we believe that every person is an image of the divine? How would we shape our public policy? What would it mean about our law enforcement, our criminal justice system, where judgment is too often rendered based on whether a person is black or white, rich or poor, rather than guilty or innocent? It's so clear that such a belief would necessitate the immediate and full abolition of the death penalty, a system so anachronistic, so heinously corrupt and morally anemic that its persistence in our time boggles the mind. Know this: we are on the right side of history. Our nation is emerging from a deep, dark night. And when we finally meet the new dawn that awaits, we will build a world in which we see and we treat every person as an image of the Holy One, in which our justice system is truly just, in which we hold every single human being with dignity, with tenderness, and with love, in which faith is an expression not of hatred or a justification for supremacy and exclusion, but is an expression of love and commitment. So please stay hopeful, stay committed. That world is not far from us now. I thank you all for working tirelessly to manifest it. Thank you.